right, good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, July 23rd, 2014, and this is Before the First Cup of Jules on UCY.TV. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is a balmy 76 degrees here in upstate New York for 9 a.m. July morning. That's pretty toasty, I would have to say. It was in the... I think it was in the high 80s with high humidity yesterday. And it was not, big before the first cup yawn. It was not one of those mornings or evenings even that you wanted to get on your bike and go riding, that's for sure. July is the weather that even here you're laying in front of an air conditioner going, oh God, it's so hot. So I was just trying to get to my page, and I was on some Olay page. I don't know what that was about. So, good morning. Happy Wednesday. I don't know, it's been a while since I've been on the air by myself, so I figured I'd see if I could give it a spin. Yes, being on by yourself is a hell of a lot harder than being on with somebody else. That's why I like it. No offense to anybody, but I like to challenge myself. It's time for some pain. I woke up this morning, and I don't know what is going on. I think it's the antibiotics, actually. I woke up this morning and literally felt like I didn't get much sleep at all. And this has been every single day like this, even after... Oh, there I go again. I'm starting again. Even after 12-hour sleeps. Now, I don't know, after the third day of a 12-hour sleep, I should start to feel pretty rested, you'd think. But it hasn't been working out that way. So I'm really hoping that it's the... that it is the antibiotics that are making me feel like that, because this isn't kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, I should be done with my antibiotics Friday. Bad news is, I'm all damn excited about that, but the bad news is I'm really not feeling all that better. So, I don't want to do round two, because, round two, just extending these same antibiotics isn't going to work. I hate my doctor. She's a little Nazi. And I don't even know her, honestly. My last three doctors all decided that the medical practice sucked. Over 20 years, insurance companies sucked. And they were good people, and they all left. So this new doctor I have now is someone who is in one of those medical groups, you know what I mean? I really liked my old doctors because they all had their own practices. This doctor, of course, is in a medical group, so she kisses all their asses and does what they say, falls in line, and feeds you the same bullshit they're feeding everybody else. And so the one time I had to go there, I don't remember what it was for, but I'm assuming it was probably a sinus infection. I'm no stranger to these things. And, yawn again, group yawn. Sorry, excuse me. Anyway, so last time I had to go there, I think it was for a sinus infection. And it was the first time I had met this woman. I had to find a doctor, and your insurance company will force you to. But it doesn't mean you have to go see them. So then, of course, you get sick. And then you got to go see them. And how awkward is that? To go see someone about an illness that you've had a million times, but you've never met this person. They're an absolute stranger. So you got to try to, hi, nice to meet you. Yes, I'm not crazy. Yes, I have a sinus infection. Get that all into one 10-minute visit. And it doesn't always work out too well. And this doctor was militant. Grilling me. And everything I said, I was wrong. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And honey, do you know who you're talking to? And I have to tell you that by the end of that visit, I was so angered. My blood pressure must have been so high, and I tweaked off a couple times at her, and I'm sure that they picked up my file and went, that's pen writing. She can see, put her on the future red list. I know that they put that in my records. Future troublemaker. So anyway, that was probably 5 years ago, maybe So here, I haven't been back since. I haven't been back to see any of them since. And now here I got a sinus infection. And these antibiotics aren't working. So A, I'm probably going to have to go back and see the Nazi doctor. And B, the last time I went to see them, that was when they gave me one of these new Generation 3 antibiotics that almost killed me. And I think I've talked a little bit about those Generation 3. There's a bunch of them. A lot of them fall in the category of chronolones. They will use them for, treating anthrax and a sinus infection. Beware that Avalox almost killed me. I had a really, really bad reaction. And I think I mentioned this on air a few times before, but over the years, I've discovered that my body is extremely sensitive to things, whether it be soaps and fragrances or medications or painkillers, like when you're in the hospital and they get the freaking spinal thing in. They almost kill me with that, too. And what's interesting about that is that cytochrome P450 enzyme that Brandon came out and talked about it. I talked about it many times. Dr. Lucier, we had her on as a guest a few times with Madison talking about that. That is that enzyme that can have many different functions, but one of the functions of that enzyme is to regulate the metabolism of medications. And I remember Dr. Lucier telling me, she had said, anyone who has trouble, taking meds, they probably have suppressed cytochrome P450 enzymes. And I was like, wow. I mean, I always had issues with quantity of medication taken because it's always too much for me. And I wish antibiotics would work the same, because then I would have knocked this thing out. But I think that's what happened in some of the new G3 antibiotics, where they almost took me out. I mean, really, really bad reactions. So anyway, I'm afraid, because if I go to the doctor, first of all, they always think you're crazy. And I'm sure over the years there's probably stuff scrawled in chicken scratch in my chart. But they always think you're crazy, and especially the doctors. Or they play that psychopathic, narcissistic game with you where they turn the tables and they make you think it's you. They make you think that they know what they're talking about and you don't, because you aren't smart enough. Well, read up some psychology, because that is narcissistic disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder. To make me think that my research is inferior to yours and my knowledge is inferior to yours and everything I think and believe is inferior to yours because you are so superior, because you are a doctor, as you're feeding me pharmaceuticals. I don't know. I have a problem with them. Here's the thing that makes me mad. It's another group that I've been very bamboozled by. There's lots of them out there. And we talked about this a long time ago, but just like the whole Barry situation and actually getting off my ass and voting in 2008. Me voting was a big deal because I had never really felt that anyone deserved my vote before. And when I finally took the plunge, that was like creating a relationship there. That really meant something to me. That was something that took me a lot to make that decision, to feel and believe that somebody was worth giving them my attention for 4 years and thinking that they were, what's the word I'm looking for, worthy. My problem up until that point is that no one had ever been worthy for that office, at least since I've been alive. I didn't believe so anyway. There was always a lesser of two evils, and why would you be voting for an evil? It was always my thing. I don't want an evil voted in. But all these relationships that you put your faith into, that then in the end never turn out that way. And, I don't care whether it's a president, it's a doctor, it's a boyfriend, it's a friend, it's an acquaintance, someone you met in alternative media. It's all the same. There's that trust that comes with a relationship. Once that trust is breached, it's very difficult to get that back again. And a doctor, I'm very sad. I wish I would have kept in touch with my doctors that all left the practice, but I guess what does it matter? They're not practicing anymore. But how sad is that good doctors don't want to do this anymore? That's gotta say something. And I was talking last night to somebody in regards to Barry Care, and not sure if everybody realizes this or not. This is something that I've only seen in passing once, and it never was made a big deal by anybody, especially the mainstream. But it most certainly should be. And we know every single sliver of government that I am seeing now is corrupted in some way, shape, or form. Our federal government is just seething and drooling, and everything is about blood and greed. It's all blood money. All of it. They're all rubbing each other. It's great. Money is falling from the sky, along with children crying on the ground, watching bodies fall from the sky. Did you guys see that? There's a clip that won. Hold on. I'll have to get there. There was a clip that won, in my personal opinion, the most gory title of the day yesterday. Oh, holy shit. How many more videos did he do? Oh, damn it. Hold on. I gotta scroll down and find where I checked out. And it most certainly wasn't. Holy crap. Here we go. Alright. Here, actually, hold on. Yeah, this might be a good way to kick it off. I don't want to sit here and just be in the pulpit all day. Sound like a preacher. Oh, I get bugged about things. I'm pissed I'm going to have to go to the doctor because this is not going to turn out well. They always pull that cocky freaking attitude on you. I know they're going to tell me I need shots. Nope, not going to happen. And then it's going to turn into a conversation about nanotechnology or mRNA or, virus-like particles. And they're going to go, boop, yeah, honey. Let's call psych. And then put you in a wrap. I'm afraid this is going to happen one day, so I try to tone it down, but sometimes I get pissed. Alright, here we go. I just got to turn off my little sound ticker. Alright, I think so. Pull myself in. And ring-a-ding-a. There we go. Alright. Nothing was playing in the background, so that's cool. Alright, here we go. This is really horrible. And I know, this is probably not good for like 15 minutes into the show and breakfast, but I don't even remember what I was talking about now because I've been so distracted, and yeah, that happens quickly in the morning. But, the goriest title of the day yesterday, at least for as far as I was awake, I thought, was this one. Witnesses say children were crying as bodies fell from the sky. What kind of world do we live in? And children are crying as bodies are falling from the sky. I was sitting here having like visions on that yesterday, just like chilling out, thinking about that title. And I was like, what post-apocalyptic novel are we living in right now? That we would have children crying, watching bodies fall from the sky. As a matter of fact, I've seen a bunch of stuff, so I believe those are bodies that were sucked inside out. What kind of a horror movie is that? And that's just one small fraction of what's going on right now. There's lots of bodies falling from skies and splattering in corners during breakfast or playing soccer or who knows what. Too much blood and death for me. Yeah, I was always a horror film junkie growing up. My dad loves blood and gut horror movies. And so that's what I grew up watching. You know, with the evil laughter when the dumb person gets killed. You know, kind of help me with my sarcastic, nasty sense of humor that I have at times. It's alright, it's good. But even I can be blood and gutted out. Alright, here, we're going to listen to this clip. This really did bother me. I spent quite a bit of time just, like, trying to envision bodies falling from the sky, and it almost seemed like an album cover. Children all standing there with tears streaming down their faces, pointing. I mean, I can see the whole thing. And the plane in the background, and the bodies just into the pit of fire. Alright, let's listen to this.
The debris of MH17 is scattered over a wide area. So is the trauma inflicted on local residents. In the nearby village of Rosipinha, the playground of an orphanage is empty and silent. The children who call this home have been sent away because on July 17 they saw too much. Valentina teaches here. She says last Thursday the children were all outside when there was an explosion. She says the children started screaming. These are dead bodies. Who is this? Valentina shows me where the body of a woman fell on the edges of the field where children were playing. Another woman came down nearby, and here she says the children saw the body of a boy hit the earth. She says they were terrified. Some screamed, some just sat and cried. MH17's cockpit now lies down the street. Valentina and other women who work at the orphanage have been coming here with pictures of children killed in the aircraft. They leave them toys, flowers for their parents. In this village, showered in debris, where people fell through ceilings and in yards, people say they will never forget July 17. For Nadezhda, the explosions, fear, and bodies were like memories of the Second World War. As well as trauma, people here feel relief, even gratitude, because no one on the ground was hurt by the bodies or the huge pieces of debris which fell so close to their homes. Near the main crash site at Prabova, residents prayed for MH17's victims. These people are living through a civil war, but even they never expected to witness death on such an extraordinary scale.
So there you go. And actually, I was trying to find... There was another story that I saw yesterday that reminded me when I was listening to him, is bodies were falling through people's roofs of their homes. What a horrifying scene! Now, I am not sure who is claiming responsibility if the rebels have come out. I haven't gotten that far yet. I believe they are, actually. I'm just scrolling down to see if there was anything that was, like, right out in the open saying, we did it! But I don't see anything like that. And I think the body falling through the roofs of the homes was yesterday, the day before. Maybe I can find that if, once I get a clip running for more than a minute and a half, I can scroll down. There's so many videos every day with all these skirmishes going on. I mean, there's at least 50, probably more like 80. It's a lot to keep up on. Makes my head hurt. Yeah, I'm not going to see it here. We'll look in a little bit. So here's a couple of the other things I wanted to mention, though. So we got this going on. This other plane. Second one out of Malaysia. And I don't really want to get into this whole plane thing. I don't think I paid enough attention. I don't really think that this whole conspiracy thing with the Malaysian plane is anything that I really want to get into. You know, people pick those up and run with them, and then they obsess over them for years on end, trying to find every inconsistency. To me, you know what? Some people can do that. I can't. To me, that really gets me stuck in the moment, and I'm in the now. You know what I mean? Like, that freeze frames you in the moment. Like, 9/11 was one of those pivotal moments in history, and I would say it's one of the greatest of our lifetime. And there are people that focus their lives on trying to prove all the inconsistencies about 9/11, and that's awesome. Without those people, you know, we would not have the historical knowledge that we do now. There's a lot of people that after a few years moved on from 9/11, but still keep it close to their hearts. That's kind of what I do. You know, Sandy Hook, that was another one where people obsessed over it. You know, I really keep hearing on UCY that little daily, every 30-second beep, like they're recording. So I'm just so happy you're here, NSA. By the way, I wanted to talk about something yesterday. Poor prepper chick. Now, I'm assuming that I'm on just fine. No one's messaging me saying, you're not on, you're not on. Why did poor prepper chick, her show could not stay on air yesterday? It's really making me upset because it trashed quite a number of shows this week where they were having connectivity problems. So, tell you what, NSA, I'm going to have to put on my thinking cap here this week because I'm going to come up with an alternate means for these people to do shows. You know, there really is not anything that I have control over with Skype. It's a hosted service. Anyone who uses it knows what I'm talking about. You just log in, and it works. And you connect to another Skype, and it works. But if it doesn't work, there's no one to call. There's no, like, admin to get in to make sure your connections are going through. There really is nothing you can do. Maybe you could submit a ticket. Good luck. You know, it's a free service. So, I don't know. It makes me mad that right now I'm doing okay here, and we had all kinds of issues yesterday and the day before, and poor Dr. Simon for the last couple weeks. He got them on his end. He actually had AT&T come and beat the crap out of him, and they found some problems. So I think his issues were much better this week. Just be aware that much of this I don't think is my problem, and I'm going to tell you why. Because right now I'm on the air just fine. Now I know that this the Skype though has problems, like me trying to get someone on the Skype or them trying to call me. For some reason it doesn't show up most of the time. You got to like drop messages back and forth a bunch of times for the Skypes almost to communicate, and then they go, "Oh, there she is. Let's send her these messages now." Anyway, I got off on a tangent. I don't remember what I was saying before. I think it was because I'd had enough to say. I've been talking about Ukraine. Oh, I know. About people picking up pivotal moments in history and dedicating themselves to learning about every single detail and trying to prove a conspiracy. And, you know, like I said, there are people who've picked up all these different events throughout at least like the last 25 or 30 years, and I know even further back. I mean, go back to, you know, Mr. Chococelli, JFK researcher. I mean, that is where he felt an affinity, and that is where a lot of his knowledge is. And people who have knowledge like that are so important to putting the puzzle pieces together, because regardless of what it says in a book, what's in our heads and the research that we've done and the connections that we've put together are the most important piece. And that's why when we're gone, that is where the majority of the knowledge disappears. And I don't think we always realize that in history. You know, we read what's in the history book, but we know that that's not fully true. And it probably isn't even close to true. Right? It's been all manipulated by whoever won the game. So, anyway, I am not going to focus on these plane tragedies. There have been enough of them. This one, there were all kinds of rumors swirling. I know that there was a story yesterday, and actually maybe I can easily find it here, where they had kind of looked at, you know, and this is again another thing. So we had the mainstream trying to make out that people who were thinking that this was some sort of conspiracy were nutbags. And, you know, we very well may be. I don't discount that I am not a nutbag sometimes. I personally like being a nutbag sometimes. Anybody who knows me would know that. It's good for me to be a nutbag sometimes. And I hate to tell you, but most of the time I'm right. So, hey, if it's the nutbags that are right, then deal with it. No. Actually, a lot of the things that I've said and been all crazy about over the years, I have been right about. I think that bothers my mother. I think she doesn't want me to be right. She lives in that perpetual state of denial. And I've always been the crazy one. So now that all that crazy stuff that I've been saying all these years is coming true, that's really damaging her normalcy bias now, isn't it? Yes, it is. And she doesn't want to hear it. She just does not want to hear it. Huh. No, I don't see it. But wow, I did find some interesting stuff that we are going to talk about. There were a few other things just discussing planes. Did everybody see that for 24 hours they halted flights to Israel? Oh, no! But here's something that really, really made me go, what? You know, like the other day, we had all these virulent diseases just kind of floating around willy-nilly from the CDC in Ziploc baggies. And we're going, what? Ziploc baggies for transporting anthrax? Well, here's another surprise. I found out at dinner yesterday on one of the alphabet channels that apparently the FAA, and not that the federal agency is anything good, but at least the FAA are the big boys that have the map that show where all the planes are. The FAA, up until just now, only gave recommendations to airline companies about where not to fly. That airline company didn't have to heed by any of those. So if the FAA said, hey, guess what? It really probably isn't a good idea to fly over the Ukraine as they're shooting surface-to-air missiles. Malaysia Air said, it's going to save us a half hour. We'll be at 33,000 feet. Time is money. Shorter trip means less gas. Means more profit. We're going to fly right over the Ukraine. And so they did. Now, when they were talking about this, I was like, well, the FAA, that's federal. Aeronautics Administration. Federal isn't global federal. Federal is the United States of America. So why would the FAA, because they were talking about this on the news, why would the FAA have any jurisdiction over A, Ukraine, over B, a Malaysian jet? Good question. I don't know. But they were making it out that the FAA should have some sort of say, especially over areas that are war-torn, that all the shit's been stirred up in. Now, it was always my belief that it was the State Department who issued travel advisories. So I would guess that if a country has an issued State Department travel advisory, I don't know, just putting on the hat of common sense, that might trigger a flag of the FAA that says, hey, any planes that maybe have American citizens on them, since that's what the State Department does overseas, right? It's supposed to be one of the many things. It's supposed to be making sure that our American citizens are okay with other countries, working in conjunction with the local consulate. But regardless of all that, and why, for some reason, they were thinking that the FAA should have some say in things that happen in other countries, why on earth would it be left up to a corporation to make a life and death decision for its passengers? Especially when things are motivated by greed and money. I was very disturbed by that. Especially having been to Amsterdam before. I was like, wow. And I mean, we flew all night, so I have no idea what countries we flew over. Or what skirmishes were going on at that time in let's see. It was October 99 I started, so it was January of 2000, I believe I was there. I'd actually just started a new job. But good thing, because my boss and I got to be fast friends. And it was I think that was my 30th birthday, wasn't it? I don't know, that was a long time ago, but wow, that was fun. But I mean, how horrible is that? And the fact that they were allowing flights to fly over danger zones like that? And I mean, we've seen it in the past. We've seen Lockerbie. And, I don't know, I'm not a plane crash researcher, so I don't remember all of them. But I'm just saying, like, who would have known, just like the CDC allowing anthrax to be carried in baggies from site to site, who would have known that they were allowing planes to fly over war zones at the corporation's decision that it was safe? In my opinion, that was pretty disturbing. So, in light of what happens over Ukraine, the FAA has stepped up and said, hey, now that Israel is bombing the shit out of Gaza, it might not be a good idea to fly planes into Israel. I believe, actually, there was an incident where some bombs, oops, hope I don't go off air, some bombs went off near the Israeli airport. And they panicked. Here, well, actually, let's listen. Delta and U.S. Air halt flights to Israel, citing safety concerns. I didn't know that they flew to Israel. I thought it was like Ishmael Air or something. All right, here we go. Maybe.
Americans hoping to visit Israel are out of luck. Delta and U.S. Airways canceled flights to Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport on Tuesday. Both airlines cited U.S. Federal Aviation Association concerns about safety. The decision came just after Hamas fired rockets into Israel, with one reaching the outskirts of the airport, injuring 2 people. It isn't clear at this point when they'll begin flying to Israel again.
Oh, it isn't clear. Yeah, in the story that I heard yesterday, not only did it strike near the airport and injure 2 people, but it made it through Iron Dome. Dun, dun, dun. Yes. Iron Dome that we pay for to protect the homeland. I don't know. I have to say that the more and more and more and more and more I see, the more militant I get over this whole situation. And I am sorry to any of my friends that are Israel lovers out there, because you are disillusioned. I, too, was formerly disillusioned for a long time, many, many, many years. I don't know how they did it to me either, because I never knew. Well, actually, I talked about it. In school, I grew up in a little dinky town. And in school, we had one Jewish person and one black person. And they were the same person. And she was a friend of mine, too. She actually lived right up the street. We both played violin. We both were in honors, English and math. She was a friend of mine. But I didn't know anything about Jewish religion, nor did I care, because it didn't matter to me at all. I first had my education in what it was to even be a different religion when I started college at UB, because it's a New York State school. It's a New York State university. Anyone in New York State can attend at a discounted rate. I don't know what the rates are now, but back in those days it was like $675 a semester. And it was a Class A world-class research university. Mind you, that was in the 80s, so I don't know what it is now. But most of those kids who came to UB were all Jewish from New York City. You know why? Because it was a damn great school. It was 800 miles away from home, so do all your running. You can get as far away from mom and dad as you want. Though it was a 45-minute plane ride home, it was really fast. From here to New York is easy. And they got the in-state rate. So they all came to Buffalo. And all my friends were Jewish. And I had never really hung out with anyone who was Jewish. So I got all kinds of education. They let me ask all kinds of questions. And none of them were religious at all. They all thought it was bullshit. They all ate hot dogs. They all had money. And they all traveled the country in the summertime to see the Grateful Dead. That's how it worked. But what was neat about it is that because I was in school studying, and I was getting an English degree, but most of what I focused on was religious literature, medieval literature. Had I stayed in there, I was going to get my master's degree in religious studies and then take it to the anthropology. I really wanted to be a female Indiana Jones, if you want to know the truth. Had I done what I was going to do, I would have been in some far-off country right now in a jungle digging, probably dying of some Marburg, Dengog fever virus. But no, I ended up not doing that. I still love it, though. I am a closet anthropologist. But I got distracted now. What was I saying? Oh, because I was really into studying religions and how they brainwash people, because that's really what it's all about. How they've managed to cause the most bloodshed out of anything in history in the name of some sort of goodness. In the name of some sort of imaginary being who thinks we should all love each other and be good humans. Yes, and go to heaven. Or some reward place, 30 Vestal Virgins, because we killed lots of people. I mean, how is that not twisted psychology? Kill in the name of eternal life. You know, I just really, from very early on, I found quite a disturbing juxtaposition in those views. And so, like I've always said, when you're looking at a story and you smell bullshit, that's where you should start picking at the scab. Religion, start to finish, is kind of one of those things for me. The whole thing all smelled bullshitty to me. And that's why I started picking at the scabs. And I did lots of global religions. And all of them, not all of them, I'll take that back, not all of them, but many of them had a very bloody history. Believe or we kill you. I mean, look at the freaking Inquisition. But I really didn't want to get off on religion, but I was talking about the Jewish state. So, wow, I even managed to remember what I was talking about. But I was talking about how I had been bamboozled, and I don't know how or where it ever happened, because none of my friends in college ever stood up and said, Israel's great! Actually, they all thought the whole thing was bullshit, and when they went home, their parents, a lot of them would make them follow the rules and do all this garbage, and they just weren't into that shit. They were 18 to 22-year-olds. What 18 to 22-year-old is into following rules? Not many that I know of. So since I didn't know anyone really growing up, except for my one friend who, we never even knew she was Jewish. I didn't know anything about the Jewish religion back in high school. And then my friends in college, which they let me pick their brains. I mean, I wanted to understand how they had a religion that didn't believe in Jesus and what they thought of Jesus. You know what I mean? Just because in studying the religious texts, they're so different, but they're so similar in their origins that I really needed to understand. And, I don't believe shit that I'm reading at times. I want to hear from the horse's mouth because everybody's got a different opinion and a different perspective and a different decoding of the facts. And that's the only way that you're really going to get the truth, is to look across a full spectrum, not just at one point of view. So I really enjoyed picking people's brains. But nowhere in there did it ever come out that, it was the homeland or anything like that. So my only source then for being bamboozled about Israel had to be the mainstream news. And I wasn't even a news watcher back then. I didn't give a shit about history. I thought it was boring. And I really didn't. I'm not going to be watching political crap on TV. I didn't even vote. So I just don't get where I ever got this impression that we should protect Israel. But up until I got bamboozled by Barry and somehow manipulated and cajoled into voting in 2008, up until that point, I was pretty status quo with my views about all that. And I even remember when I first started doing radio on the old network, that was one of the things on the very first show that I co-hosted on that they used to talk about a lot was Israel. And I remember I would get so mad at them because I was like, guys, you are just so anti-whatever. They're people like us, blah, blah, blah. Why are you picking on them? And I really, 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 I remember, actually, I'm not going to say any names, but I remember the person who owned that network telling me that the SPLC was always coming after them and blah, blah, blah. And I really thought that these were paranoid delusions. I really thought that they were being mean, and they were being, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not racist, but you know what I'm saying, like culturally racist. I really thought that it was them. And as the last 3 years have gone on, this has just been in the last 3 years of me paying attention, I really started to open my eyes to what is going on, not only with Israel and watching their bullshit story and their little narrative that they weave here and jump up and down and cry, pay attention to me. But the whole Middle East thing, I just cannot believe how damn brainwashed we have been to all this stuff that's going on there. And, I'm no dummy. So how did I get so freaking brainwashed? That's what I don't get. How did they play the Jedi mind trick on me? Because the thing is, I'm one of those really annoying people that has 10,000 freaking questions and I don't believe things just because someone tells me. Like, I'm the one that you always want to strangle if you're up giving a lecture of something controversial, because I'm going to attack you with questions. So, how did I believe the bullshit? That's what I don't get. So there must be quite the propaganda war going on somehow. And I mean, at least I know it's not just me. Now, thank God, all of that has been shattered. I'm sure I still have. And my one friend that I agree on with nothing points out to me daily, there's always something that I can be educated in that I have some messed up view about. I don't know how that's possible either, but every day I learned something that I was like, wow, really? How is that possible? It's just the world of illusion. It's like the magical world of illusion, and they have tigers and clowns coming out, and little poodles riding unicycles. That's what I feel like some days when I do the news. So anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to get that out because now, actually, let's find that Gaza. I don't know if there was, I think it was just raw video. So it probably is just mass fire explosions. I don't even know if I didn't post that one. It was late, but here it was, let's see, 10 hours ago, so it must be right here somewhere. Maybe not. Massive explosions in Gaza yesterday late. I thought, we had talked about at the end of the show yesterday, that Hamas was aiming for some peace talks. Not that, Israel, they're probably just going to keep rolling in with steamrollers. And as a matter of fact, as I'm just scrolling through these clips, I do not see anything else about peace talks anywhere at all. Just explosions, death, and destruction going on in freaking Palestine. So, sounds to me like they didn't work things out. Yeah, no. Hitting the tunnels, hey, Texas border. Oh, here. Actually, now here's another battle. I'm telling you, in the very beginning, too, we had this whole conversation about the border. I don't want to get into a border conversation because, honestly, guys, there's too much going on, and I can't focus on any of this. And it's all bad, okay? That's what we need to know. It's all bad. This border thing is just another piece of the puzzle to destabilize what we know. I really think in that clip we saw yesterday in regards to the MS-13 and the gangs in LA and the drug and gun running, and I mean, let's back up the truck to the days of Michael Rupert when he was investigating the LAPD and their gun and drug running with the gangs. He got railroaded for doing a lot of that research. He got run out of the country, and he passed away now. But you also had Mae Brussels who talked about it, did a lot of investigation into that. We have Fast and Furious, which is round 2 of the Iran-Contra scandal. I was talking with Michael Hammy last night, and yes, that gun and drug scandal, that all the running that was going on over the Mexican border in South LA was part of the Iran-Contra scandal. And I mean, that's when I first really woke up. My very beginning foray into being rebellious in my thought and not following the status quo. Here's something very interesting that I just realized. The same person who got me into radio, who I did radio for, I'd actually known that person for 30 years. That was the same person that got me to be in his punk band in the early 80s singing backup on the Iran-Contra scandal song that we did. That got played on the college radio station. Wow! Huh. It was the same person. Guess he was a catalyst to make me a rebel. That's weird. I never realized that before. Yeah, so that game never changed. So this whole thing that's going on for drugs and guns and Fast and Furious now in these gangs, don't think that was just isolated to here. We were able to track that all the way back to Libya and Stevens getting killed. And again, the Iran-Contra, tracked that all the way back to Carter and Iran? I don't know. I didn't spend a lot of time in the Iran-Contras, but we have the Middle East. This is all we need to know. We had the Middle East and South America involved. And now we have the Middle East and South America involved. And lo and behold, we have terrorists and we have gang members acting as terrorists. And look at, they are running rampant everywhere. We have skirmishes going on everywhere. And according to this video that we heard yesterday, as we were arresting the MS-13 gang members that, we were supplying the guns to, and they were giving us the drugs, they would get convicted and then shipped back over the border and into South America. Anyone who's saying they did an interview with somebody, one of the local people down in Guatemala or wherever, and he said, yes, the gang violence is horrible, and if you come down and you say you're from LA, you might just be a little guy up in LA, but because you said you're from LA, that makes you a leader. And they have been taking this violence, this learned behavior, this slaughtering and killing and beheading, and sending that through generations now of South Americans. You know, my one friend was explaining to me what La Familia was, and I really didn't understand, but I do now. The gangs are a double-edged sword. The gangs cause violence and run drugs, but also the gangs are protection. And especially if you're from a very poor family, the gang might be the one taking a lot more care of you than your family or the government or anything for helping you keep your family safe, keep clothes on your back, keep what little food there is coming, and you are expected to pay with your loyalty, which many times will include, doing what they say. And that one kid was saying they had him beheading people and doing all this horrific shit. And then, or now, according to that interview, this influx of immigrants, and I do believe a little bit of this. I mean, I can see how this is possible. I don't think this is the whole story, though. But this influx of immigrants now is coming across the border trying to flee this vicious violence that's going on down there. That if we believe that story, and I kind of do, because, wow, it's just so similar to all the things that we've stirred up in the Middle East. We actually started the unrest by fueling it with cash and guns and money. Radicalizing these people. We probably even trained them. CIA trainings for the gangs on the guns. And then we shipped them back over the border to go help us run some more black ops drug money and gun sales. Man, I just keep hearing those beeps. I hope you guys are getting all this. And I'll tell you what, I hope you're learning something, because your government has been pulling this bullshit for a long time. And guess what? Now it's coming back to roost. It's going to bite us right in the ass. And whether or not it was by design or not, all of our families are going to be affected. Don't think this is for you or me. Absolutely not. This is for the greedmongers and the warmongers. So anyway, Perry comes out now, And he says that he has deployed 1,000 troops to the border. This is just whack jobby. Let me see if I can get this video to load. Maybe not. I think this machine now is going to give me fucking problems. Let's see. Hold on. One more reload, and we'll see. This is where we start to sing. La 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 la. La 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 la. I don't know, I don't have any songs going through my head today. We're going to try it this way. Oh, I've said the magic words, so nothing loads anymore. Nothing loads anymore. Beep, beep. Nothing loads anymore. It doesn't. Nothing loads anymore. Boop, boop. Hold on. Here it comes. I need to blow my nose, so come on, video! It's just spinning. You know what's weird is that sometimes I can prompt it to get moving by, on my other machine, go to the UCY homepage. Tell me this isn't like so bizarro. And go to the homepage, and then I can start the video feed playing, and that like unclogs the pipe. There we go.
Latest on the crisis along our southern border. One of President Obama's harshest critics, Texas Governor Rick Perry, taking matters into his own hands, calling in the National Guard. ABC's Jim Avila has details for us from Washington. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Robin. The Texas governor is putting more eyes and more guns on the border, but the Border Patrol says they're not needed because federal law prohibits the military from enforcing civilian laws.
This morning, National Guard troops are on orders to mobilize, preparing to head to the southern border for what Texas Governor Rick Perry is calling Operation Strong Safety, with a hefty price tag of $12 million per month.
What we're asking the National Guard to do is to be a force multiplier, to be there as a partner with the law enforcement.
By next month, 1,000 National Guard troops will be there, but by law, they cannot make any arrests, instead acting only as a visual deterrent. The Texas general in charge confirms his troops cannot send immigrants back across the border, or even use the weapons the Guard carries.
We're planning on referring and deterring, so deterring them with a visible presence.
The White House calling the plan merely a symbolic gesture.
What we're focused on is making sure that we have the necessary resources at the border to deal with this problem on a sustained basis.
On the border, no signs that the surge of thousands of undocumented immigrants, largely mothers with children or kids unaccompanied by an adult, is weakening. Jorge Ramos of our sister network Fusion demonstrated the danger of the last leg in the treacherous journey across the border, swimming the perilous waters of the Rio Grande. Ramos also traveling through the tunnels that others use to make the perilous trip.
For many immigrants, this is the first glimpse that they have of the United States.
The head of the Border Patrol telling ABC News he has other needs. It's not about detaining the child immigrants. They're giving themselves up. It's about where to put them, and neither Governor Perry or the Guard has offered any help with that. Robin?
Okay, Jim, and in your piece we just saw Jorge Ramos of our sister network Fusion will anchor a special Edge of a Crisis tonight, 10 Eastern, from the U.S.-Mexican border.
I don't know. You know, that's just another one of these stories that I just don't know what to say about it. You know, I don't know. I just don't know. We're in deep shit. That's all I know. And so, absolutely right, though. Here's something that's disturbing. So let's put National Guard on the border, but they're military, so they're not really allowed to do anything on homeland soil. But tell me if this isn't kind of a scary thought. Does that set some sort of precedence? I mean, do we typically call up National Guard on U.S. soil? I know people have been called up to National Guard, but my friends that were called up to National Guard actually went back to Iraq the last time. Is this something typical to deploy them on U.S. soil? I don't know. Cupid doll. Cupid doll for anyone who has anything to say about that, because that's something that I do not know. Posse Comitatus says that we can't, but does the NDAA break that? You know, I have no idea. Could this be the first step? Could Paul Perry be leading us down the path of then having to call the UN? Because now we've called the National Guard, which is a military force, is really not supposed to and not allowed to do anything on Homeland soil. But hey, and the Border Patrol is overrun, and oh my God, it's a humanitarian crisis. Let's get that UN. Just a thought. I don't know. You know, they were showing the tunnel. He's like, oh, yeah, they take that path and they come through this tunnel and they go through the Rio Grande. Why aren't they, like, pouring concrete in those tunnels? That would be my first thought. And if they really, 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 really wanted to stop this stuff, couldn't they do stuff like that? Like, obviously, a chicken wire fence, all you need is a pair of wire cutters, snip, 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 and you're through. But freaking pouring 12 feet of cement in there would kind of fix them now, wouldn't it? I don't know. Lots of stuff that just... I get to the point where I don't want to pay attention anymore, and I think that that is intended. This normalcy bias. I want to crawl back into my dogma snuggie, Kevin. I get the dogma snuggie now. Some days I like the dogma snuggie. I get all warm and toasty in there, and I can sit and rock in my chair and make sure that I feel okay. It disturbs me, especially on so many fronts. We need to deal with so many things that don't have easy solutions at all. Right now, with all of these incursions, I guess you could call them, all over the world, there's a massive humanitarian crisis going on. I just saw a story about Ukraine and what deplorable conditions. Now, all the people that were displaced because of this big orchestrated, I don't know, what do you want to call it, melee going on there right now. Those people are living in absolute squalor. And let's go to Syria. What? Where'd all those millions of people get displaced to? Oh, to all the countries around them? Living in tent cities? Actually, my friend that I talked to, and I had asked them one night, I'm like, whatever happened to all the Syrian refugees? And I got some horrific, horrific pictures of tent cities. And I mean millions of people living in tent cities. And you could probably bet there's lots of rampant disease floating around in all of these tent cities. Just as there have been rumors of diseases being carried across the border and now festering in these quote-unquote some sort of immigrant detention future FEMA camp locations. Right on the heels of finding out there have been all these massive breaches in CDC security, again with all these virulent diseases just floating around willy-nilly, nobody really taking any of them seriously. I know one of the chatters had brought up the pneumonic plague in Colorado a couple days ago. I don't remember who I heard, but somebody was reading the pneumonic plague symptoms and issues on air the other day. And what I did not realize is that pneumonic is actually more virulent than bubonic because it is airborne. And pneumonic, to me, would mean more like pneumonia, right? Something that used that type of, I don't even know, is plague viral or is it bacterial? I'm almost going to guess that it's viral, but I don't know that for a fact. Hold on. I had a story, because there are actually 3 more cases I saw of plague in Colorado. And now, and those of you who saw this in chat last night, I dropped it. But I saw two versions of the same story. One came out of the Daily Mail, which, like I always say, take that source for what it is. Sometimes they get good stories there. Sometimes the stories are spun up a bit. But, usually the headlines at least have some truth in them. The other one was from Yahoo News. Again, take the source for what it is. I tend to look a little bit closer at Yahoo just because it is so mainstream that at least they got to have some facts right somewhere, right? I would probably look at that a little bit more than Joe's blog. No, I'd still look at Joe's blog. Just if that was the only place that was reporting the story, I probably wouldn't believe Joe's blog. So I've now found two news sources somewhere that are kind of mainstream, that are kind of telling the same story. Again, like I said, not that that means anything, but it's usually a good indication that something is going on there. So, and I can't find, there was, maybe it's over on my other page, but I did find the story about the plague in China, and what is interesting about this is that I think this is bubonic plague, which, like I said, in our reading, we discovered that pneumonic plague in the stuff that's in Colorado is actually even worse than bubonic plague, and they're not doing a quarantine. Well, check this out. This is what kind of caught my attention. Chinese city sealed off after bubonic plague death. 30,000 residents of Yunnan are not being allowed to leave, and 151 people have been placed in quarantine after man's death. A Chinese city has been sealed off, and 151 people have been placed in quarantine since last week after a man died of bubonic plague, state media says. The 30,000 residents. Now, is this going to be what's to come, people? I don't know, but remember the story, because this is one of those things I was like, boop, 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 boop. Uh-oh. 30,000 residents of Yunnan in the northwestern province of Gansu, not Ginsu, Gansu, are not being allowed to leave, and police at roadblocks on the perimeter of the city are telling motorists to find alternative routes, China's Central Television said. A 38-year-old man died last Wednesday, the report said, after he had been in contact with a dead marmot, a small, furry animal related to the squirrel. No further plague cases have been reported. CCTV, which is the Chinese Central Television, said officials were not allowing anyone to leave the town. The China Daily newspaper said 4 quarantine sectors had now been set up in the city. Are you people hearing this? This is for one case, by the way. And so we've had now 4 cases of a more virulent strain of plague in Colorado, yet I'm not seeing any type of quarantining going on. Are they just allowing all this crazy shit now to percolate everywhere? I mean, we started with the whole Ebola thing. Even before, well, no, Ebola and that MERS kind of percolated together. MERS has vanished. Ebola I just saw, now it's over 600 cases. We got all these immigrants or illegals coming in with who knows what. And I don't blame them for that. But still, with who knows what. And we got how many? 6 cases of all these dangerous pathogens just being chucked around willy-nilly, traveling in freaking Ziplocs in somebody's lap. And then we got terrorists, quote-unquote, terrorists, recreated terrorists, round 1 and round 2, on the homeland and away, whether you got a turban or a freaking bandana, they're everywhere with all these dangerous pathogens. And oh, wait, Didn't just before all this, scientists go out and publish multiple versions of how to genetically engineer bird flu and the flu of 1918 and I don't know, what was the other one? To make them like 98% effective at killing people? Yes, they did. And they published all that work in scientific journals for everybody. Because the world deserved to know. So I guess it is going to turn into my DARPA conversation. That's good. We got 45 minutes, so we'll get there. Anyway, I'm going to finish reading this bubonic plague story out of China. It's bacterial. All right. So the China Daily newspaper says 4 quarantine sectors have been set up in the city. Quote, the city has enough rice, flour, and oil to supply all of its residents for up to 1 month, said CCTV. Now, what? So they're under quarantine so bad that there's not going to be any food shipping in or out? Like, we got to make sure we got enough food in our city to supply the residents who are under quarantine for a month? That's a scary thought. Local residents and those in quarantine are all in stable condition. No further cases have been reported. Bubonic plague is a bacterial infection best known for the Black Death, a virulent epidemic that killed tens of millions of people in the 14th century Europe. Yes, one of my favorite time periods, the Middle Ages. Bring out your dead. Bong. Monty Python. Primarily an animal illness, it is extremely rare in humans. Yes, it is, but you can get it. You can get it from poop of little creatures. I thought there was a case up in, and we talked about this probably a month or so ago. I briefly mentioned it. There's a case at a cabin. I thought it was in like Montana or North or South Dakota, where there had been some mouse or squirrel poop in a cabin that had been locked up all season. And some unlucky soul rented it and came in contact with it, got sick. I believe they did recover, probably with antibiotics. But it is very serious, and it probably takes some pretty strong shit, I would imagine. Oh, well, here we go. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, the same ones that mishandled all of those other virulent smallpox, anthrax. Who was the other one? There was some other really crazy. I was like, are you kidding me? You guys are just like chucking this stuff around. The ones who mishandled all these vials of horrible things that could be unleashed on the world. Says modern antibiotics are effective in treating plague, but that without prompt treatment, the disease can cause serious illness or death. And then there's a little notation. This article was amended on July 23rd. What? Yeah, it must be today. To correct the name of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So I wonder what they were calling them yesterday. I will drop this in the chat for anyone who hasn't seen this story. So, again, the question remains, why, with the bubonic plague not being as virulent as the pneumonic plague, why do we have now 3 or 4 cases in Colorado and they don't have any quarantining procedures going on? Isn't that kind of a good question? 'Cause I think it is. Not that, like I said, I'm for quarantining anybody, because I'm not. Or for locking down a city for 30 days with all of the residents. That's just crazy. And saying, gee, hope we have enough food to feed them all for 30 days. But They're not locking down Colorado, that's for sure. And think about it. Colorado's got a huge influx now of tourists. Isn't that just a great place if you wanted to create like a mothership and a whole bunch of typhoid Marys? Wouldn't Colorado be a great place to do that? Here we go, I found it. 3 more cases of the deadly form of plague found in Colorado. This was out of Zero Hedge. I believe this was already 4 days ago, so haven't seen an update on this. This is from the 19th. If this loads. Again, let's do the Jeopardy theme. Oh, here we go. They didn't want to hear me singing. It has been quite a week for geopolitics. Yeah, I read all the background. We had the BRICS. That's that whole Latin American nation. Actually, that's pretty important, too. While this is all going on, we have Russia, China, Brazil, India, and one of the South African countries all doing high fives, starting their own World Bank. That won't be participating in the U.S. petrodollar, I'm imagining. Make a note of that. I think that's kind of important. So, anyway, this is from the 19th, ZeroHedge.com. It has been quite a week for geopolitics. First, the BRICS openly defied the legacy-developed world system with the formation of a BRIC bank and the creation of a $100 billion currency reserve, promptly followed by the latest and most severe rounds of, yes, U.S. sanctions against Russia. We did talk about that last week. Barry's sanctions against Russia, in case it happened while you were sleeping, now prevents them from exporting any AK-47s, which in essence pretty much makes them now no longer available. Easy way to get rid of the weapons. Followed even more promptly by the tragic disaster of MH17, yes. Another big fat distraction that could be taken for weeks and months, just like MH370 was. Anyway, followed by promptly the tragic disaster of MH17, which sadly turns out to be nothing more than another yet provocative attempt to unleash war and change the Russian-European energy balance of power. Yes, actually, they really are pushing lots of buttons and trying to taunt Russia into some sort of action or some sort of response that we can then point a finger at. And the thing is that Putin is actually kind of playing it cool. Now, I'm no Putin lover. Remember, there's a whole psyop going on with Putin, too, trying to make us be Putin lovers. Don't be a Putin lover. Don't love any of them. They are all corrupt. They are all in the back end, butt-slapping each other, clinking their champagne glasses and laughing evilly over their large, very nice Stratego board. What was the movie with Dr. Evil? Remember, they had a really nice Stratego board? You better believe it. And they probably have stock tickers on the wall watching all their military-industrial complex stock go up for Q3. Actually, I think we're still in Q2, aren't we? January, February, March, April, May, June. No, we are in Q3. So we're starting Q3 out just fine. And masked by a public fury at the death of several hundred innocent bystanders. Speaking of innocent bystander deaths, yes, right on the tail of that. And as a matter of fact, I heard a clip that said it was actually the same day that the plane crashed. Israel decided to start rolling tanks into Gaza. Now, is that a coincidence? Absolutely not. Somebody just lit the fuse. All in all, a very disturbing week, which, however, nobody was looking at the S&P 500 would realize. Well, exactly. And look, we are still over 17,000, though it is down 24 right now. in the first hour and 22 minutes of trading, it is still over 17,000. So as far as any of the sleeping people are concerned, or our congressmen, 50% of whom are now millionaires, betting on the wars and the blood and guts to make their money, everything looks just fine. But it has also been a very busy week for viral epidemiologists who have been following the ongoing Ebola epidemic in West Africa. Yes, so we just claimed over 600 lives by now and has become the worst Ebola outbreak in history. Now, how many times have we said that? And again, they're like, no, nothing to see here. Don't worry about it. We got it under control. And then some more news gets out. Oh, my God, it's so bad. This is the worst one we've ever seen. No, we're not even counting numbers anymore. It's so under control. But wait, what may be even soon a bigger news story is what we reported a week ago, namely that a Colorado man is infected with the rarest and most fatal form of the pneumonic plague, an airborne version that can be spread through coughing and sneezing. Now, what is really important about that very section of sentence is that they've been talking about how to make the best bioweapon for a long time. And even back when I first started radio, one of the things that they were kind of tossing around and a few of the science magazines wrote about on how to make a good bioweapon would be using rabies and how to make it airborne. And there was an article, I believe it was either out of Discover, Scientific American, or National Geographic. I believe they all had articles in regards to the rabies virus and using it as a zombie virus, if you remember that. And what they had come up with is that if they took the rabies virus, which pretty much destroys the amygdala in the brain, and that ability to know not right from wrong, but it's your impulse control is what it destroys. So kind of like a zombie. Blood, I don't care, I'm hungry, rip a head off, blah. And cross it with something like the common cold, which is easily spread person to person via airborne particulate and water droplets. That would be an effective weapon. And I was like, what? Are you people so freaking stupid that you would be putting that in a freaking mainstream magazine going, hey, anybody out there with their home slice them and dice them bioengineering kits in their garage that they got the centrifuges on eBay for $9.95, which that was another article saying how easy it was to do bioengineering on all these virulent substances if you could get your hands on them by buying parts off of eBay and doing it in your garage. I was like, how freaking stupid is that? Well, it seems like they one-upped all that. Because now we got cases of airborne pneumonic plague. They're like, hey, you know what? This stuff works way better than trying to get that virus, that zombie virus working. And this is already something we don't have to screw around with. Let's just set it free. Okay. Shocked by this development, the state was working to investigate the source of exposure and to identify those who may have been exposed through close contact with the individual. The Colorado Department of Health and Environment had said in its statement, any individuals exposed will be recommended for antibiotic treatment. Alas, that may be futile. Yeah, isn't that what the Borg said? Because while untreated plague is fatal, antibiotics, and this is all in bold, have to be given within 24 hours of the first symptoms to reduce the chance of death. Symptoms include disease. Symptoms of the disease include fever, headache, chest pain, along with a pneumonia that develops rapidly, causing shortness of breath, chest pain, bloody mucus, according to the CDC. I really think I hate to tell you, but there's a lot of us that are coming down with this, whatever this plague is that I'm still fighting, that my antibiotics don't seem to be helping much. And it's starting to scare me because my one friend who's been really sick with this thing had kind of joked that maybe he had the plague. I'm like, well, that's really not that funny because it could be possible in Wonderland. And we are living in Wonderland these days. Now, even better, and this is going to be my lead up to the last half hour of the show, since there is no vaccine available for plague in the U.S., just like there's no vaccine for Ebola and a lot of these other virulent, 1918 flu that we just supercharged to kill 98% of all people, one can understand why the authorities are doing their best to prevent a panic. Now, like I said, preventing a panic I can see, but pneumonic plague is the worst of all the plagues. Bubonic plague just broke out in China, and they've quarantined a town of 30,000 people. Colorado is like the Nirvana of America, and as a matter of fact, even Amsterdam is jealous. And how interesting that MH17 was leaving Amsterdam. I don't know, that might just be kind of a psycho weirdo connection there, but it seems kind of interesting. I'm going to say that Colorado is where the new second government headquarters are supposedly set up now, aren't they? Just saying. Not getting anyone freaked out, but I'm saying pay attention. Get N95 masks if you can find them. I just had, last time my husband ran out, I had him get me another 30-pack. Get some silver. Start taking your vitamins. Start taking your greens and get your immune system up. And that's why I'm kind of scared that I can't get rid of this, because that's what's going to kill you first, is a depressed immune system and being sick. You want to be in tip-top shape if we have a pandemic, because you're not going to like the solution. Oh, sure, there's going to be a cure. Trust me. There will be a cure. These will not be uncurable diseases. But you're going to be version 1.0 in a horrific DARPA experiment. Anyway, since there is no vaccine available for plague in the U.S., one can understand why the authorities are doing their best to prevent a panic. Colorado officials recommended that pets are kept away from wildlife, especially dead rodents. The plague can be spread from animals after a large die-off of prairie dogs, and I think that's where this came from. When fleas with the bacteria seek new hosts, according to the state. My mother was the bug lady for many, many years. She was an entomologist who identified bugs for a pest control place. She was really good at it, too. My mother's always had a green thumb, so doing the bug thing was just a natural progression. We always used to call her the bug lady. But one of the things that I know, having my mom as a former bug lady, is that July to August, at least here in New York State, is high time for fleas. And if you have pets, you probably could even let your pets out in the backyard up through mid-July without having to really worry much about fleas. Now, I don't know, depending on whether the winter was warm or cold, will determine when the flea problem gets worse, more worse than others. But typically, mid-July to August is when fleas are rampant in the lawns. So how nice that we have these, and I mean that is how it spread. That's even how the plague spread throughout medieval England, was on the fleas that were being carried on the rats that were infected. But when I start looking at stuff like this, wow, does this start screaming to me Plum Island-esque spreading of things such as Lyme's disease. And, I don't know, mysterious pterodactyl-sized genetically modified mosquitoes showing up in Florida. I thought I just saw now there's a big outbreak of not only dengue fever, which I thought that was happening in Brazil, the World Cup, but then there's that Chucamunga virus, or however it's said, that again is another disease that's being spread by mosquitoes. Just seems like there's a lot of diseases spreading around right now. Since there is no vaccine available for the plague in the U.S., one can understand why authorities are doing their best to prevent panic in Colorado. The officials are recommending residents keep pets away from wildlife, especially dead rodents. Plague can spread from animals after large die-offs of prairie dogs where fleas with the bacteria will seek new hosts. The message we are trying to get out is that the plague bacteria is present here in Colorado, and you must take necessary precautions to avoid getting infected. Now, the scariest thought is fleas are everywhere. You know, you can get a flea bite while you're sleeping anywhere. Fido can be the one that carries the infected flea. And the bacteria that Fido is carrying in that one single flea is an airborne pathogen. That's a frightening thought. Alas, the message appears to have not gotten out in time. According to Bloomberg, things in Colorado are about to get worse as 3 more plague cases have been found in Colorado. A week after the first infection of the deadliest form of the disease was reported in the state in a decade. The man initially reported with pneumonic plague on July 11th is hospitalized. 2 of the new cases also had pneumonic plague, while the third has a milder form. All 4 cases may be linked to the original man's dog, which the poor dog died from the illness, or they may not. Now, I would find it hard to believe. Now, they don't tell us, though, if these guys were in any type of, 1 mile radius, like next-door neighbors. But have you ever seen the size of a flea? I'm going to guess it was not Harry the circus flea that bit all 4 of those people. I'm going to guess that they were all different fleas. Come on. It was the same flea. And we know that because how? He sent us an email. I don't know. It's the same flea. It was not the same flea, okay? I don't care what they say. The good news is that people newly found to be infected were treated with antibiotics. Well, that's good. Recovered and are no longer contagious. Phew! Health officials suspect that dog that died may have been exposed to plague-infected fleas from a prairie dog or a rabbit. The bad news is that the last time we heard about a case of plague in Colorado, that too was supposed to be the last one. But that will not prevent the authorities from attempting to talk down the spread in cases. There are 3 main types of plague. Septimitic plague, which, yes, that's like sepsis in the blood. The bacteria proliferates in the bloodstream. Bubonic plague, which can take hold underneath the skin, and that's why they call it black, because your skin called black probably causes necrosis. And pneumonic plague, the most serious, that can be spread through coughing and sneezing, and occurs just like pneumonia when bacteria enters the lungs. Plague in all of its forms usually infects an average of 7 people a year in the U.S. Well, good, we already got 4 down. And it is mostly found in the western United States, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. The disease is transmitted by fleas which pick up the bacterium from infected animals such as chipmunks, prairie dogs, ground squirrels, mice, and other mammals. Now, I have chipmunks and, what do they call it? Those little chubby thingies that live under my shed. Woodchucks around my house. I probably have 7 or 8 between the 2. And all kinds of squirrels in the trees. And I live in suburbia, so I'm guessing in Colorado, where there's a lot more trees and nature, that they probably have a lot more wildlife out there than I have here. What about 4 cases? In any event, we are confident that along with the surge of other tragic news from around the globe in this past week, this too will at most send the stock market to even higher all-time highs. Of course it will. Because guess what? There are geoengineering tobacco plants. Oh, we gotta look at this. They're geoengineering tobacco plants to take in virus-like particles. We talked about this the other day, which are genetically modified with some sort of crazy nanotech to then be injected into you and your children when there is no cure and a lot of people are sick and they say that there is no vaccine, but hey, lo and behold, yes, we have all this new technology that we've been working on that have shown promising results, and it is your last chance if you want to survive. And I just see all of this lining up to be a really ugly, horrific potential future. And it's ramping up on a daily basis. So I will drop that one. I'm sure you guys all saw that. I'm sure that while I wasn't listening, somebody read that story. But hey, when I read it, it bothered me, especially in conjunction with the Chinese story. Oh, look at that. And it doesn't copy. Hold on. Especially in conjunction with the Chinese story and them quarantining an entire town of 30,000 people for a lesser... There we go. For a lesser form of the disease. Alrighty. Now, on the heels of that, let's get it all lined up, because this is kind of when I decided to call it a night last night, is when I saw this video, because I was like, those MFers, they really are. This narrative is just unwinding like a good freaking Brothers Grimm story. Because here comes the next one.
Antibiotic resistance could affect any of us. In fact, 2 million Americans get resistant infections each year.
Stop! Now! Did we not just hear how don't worry about the pneumonic plague that's floating around Colorado because we got antibiotics? And as long as we get it in the first 24 hours, don't worry because everyone's recovering. Well, now the drums come out. Ba-da-boom, 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 ba-da-boom. But people, don't forget, antibiotic resistance is out there everywhere because we've overprescribed them for 30 years. This is the setup. Right here. Ding, 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 ding. Setup. Oh, wait. I have finger symbols. I haven't used these in, like, months. We need to do finger symbols. This is it, people. This is the setup to get you to take the DARPA vaccines that they're just about ready to rock and roll with. Blue Angel. And if you ever saw, search Blue Angel in Google. Blue Angel Space DARPA. It is like the angel of death. That's all I thought. When I first saw that program back a few years ago, I was like, wow, that's kind of a scary visual image now, isn't it? Here.
23,000 Americans die from infections each year, resistant infections each year. I'm an infectious disease physician. I've treated patients for many infections, and I've also treated patients for whom there were no antibiotics left.
Yes. By the way, this is the head of the CDC. Tom Frieden. Sounding alarms about the growing threat of antibiotic resistance, CDC Director Tom Frieden warned if the global community does not confront the problem soon, the world will be living in a devastating post-antibiotic era. All right, a little bit more.
I felt like a time traveler, going back to an era before antibiotics. We talk about the pre-antibiotic era and the antibiotic era. If we're not careful, we will soon be in a post-antibiotic era.
Now, the pre-antibiotic era was like 14th century England with the bubonic plague. Yes, it was. Just keep that image in your head. I've seen lots of horrific paintings of depictions of that time. It was not a pretty picture.
In fact, for some patients and some pathogens, We're already there.
Yes, we are.
Antimicrobial.
MRSA. Good news, silver works on MRSA. I highly recommend silver as something that you put in your medicine cabinet. You know, I need to spend some time doing research, actually, in regards to that UV air purifier I had mentioned that I had read about a while ago. And I also wonder, and maybe this is something for others to help me research, what kind of an effect it would have if you had a like a humidifier, because one of my friends had suggested this with this lung plague, is putting some colloidal silver into a humidifier and then firing up that humidifier with my head under a towel over the humidifier so that steam would get into the lungs and kill the bacteria. That might be something to look into as a way to maybe sanitize a small safe room. I don't know. But I am seriously concerned. I really am. That you're seeing all these red buttons go off right now, and they are really setting this up. This is like the setup to a bad Stephen King novel, like The Stand. Telling you guys, I've been waiting for this since the 70s, since I read that book. That book scared the living bejesus out of me. All right, a little bit more.
Resistance has the potential to harm or kill anyone in the country, to undermine modern medicine,
anyone,
devastate our economy, and to make our
holy shit! Wait, back the truck up. Did you hear him? He is hitting all the points right now. Because once antibiotics don't work, it's going to bring us all down, kill us all, destroy our economy. Set up, bing, bing. Wait, I think we need even more than finger symbols. Ah! We just found the mother lode. All right, we're going to hear that one more time.
Resistance has the potential to harm or kill anyone in the country, to undermine modern medicine, to devastate our economy, and to make our healthcare system less stable. Every day we delay, it gets harder and more expensive to reverse it. It's not too late. We can shrink the numbers and control it. If we don't, then common infections like urinary tract infections may be very difficult to treat, and we may be, many of us, where I've unfortunately been in that time machine looking at what a world was like before antibiotics.
Did that not give you chills? Because I know it did for me. They've been talking about antibiotic resistance for a long time. That trichosan shit that they were putting in all of our consumer products probably helped bring that along quite a bit. They now find that trichosan is a hormone disruptor and has all these other effects in the body. It's showing up in urine and in breast milk and all this other crazy shit. So they pulled it out of a lot of the soaps and toothpastes. I don't know if Colgate Total still has it in the toothpaste, but the day I found out it was in my freaking toothpaste, that was the last day I used that. But one of the other things that we've discovered is that an overuse of antibiotics has also decimated our gut flora. Our gut flora is a lot of what helps keep us healthy. I discovered after being sick for many years as part of this antibiotic overuse experiment that they ran for my entire youth, that it was my gut flora decimation that then caused all of the problems that followed, down to the autoimmune diseases that just about took me out. It's gut flora. Gut flora helps protect you. Vitamin D3, that helps protect you as well from getting ill to begin with. Boost that immune system, because that is going to be our one weapon in all of this. And again, we're getting way down to the end of this. I want to maybe just touch now. Let me get over to before the first cup. All of the stories that I'm going to hit right now, if you want to look into any of the research, are below the chat on the Before the First Cup page. UCY.TV/BTFC Before the First Cup. But I had started posting stories again the other day in regards to some of these new frightening universal-esque vaccines that they've been working on. And again, I need to, what's so sad is that by the beginning of the show, I don't have the mental capability, because I'm still trying to wake up, to talk about all this stuff. And then I get off on tangents, and then I get to where I'm ready to rock and roll, and now I got I got about 10 minutes left in the show, so I probably can get through some of those. But this really needs to have a good 2 or 3 days dedicated to looking at all this stuff. There's a few things that are being worked on, all being financed by DARPA. What's interesting is that the one group of geoengineered, quote-unquote, vaccinations that are being worked on are all being worked on in Europe, it appears, with DARPA money and European vaccine companies. And we know that over in Europe they have lots of different standards. There are things that can go on in Europe that aren't necessarily allowed here unless, of course, we declare a pandemic like Barry did for the swine flu, and that allows them to open the door and fast-track things without proper FDA approval. Not that the FDA ever really protected us. Actually, here is a clip that I posted out here that I don't think I ever played on air. If we can get there, and now I just have a big white screen. We're going to see if I can sing. La 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 la. Sometimes if I sing it works. La 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 la. All right, here it comes. Hurry up, let's load. Do. It is titled "More than 300 Deadly Vials of Germs Found." Now, you guys remember the count being up to 300? This is just from the other day. Here we go.
It turns out a search at the National Institutes of Health found more than 300 unrecorded vials of...
Stop! National Institute of Health? What? This isn't the FDA or the USDA or the CDC. Now it's National Institute of Health? Aren't they in the middle of the brain project too? Isn't it convenient that all these people, all these organizations are all part of the brain project? And oh, what? In the same headline, they're mentioning massive layoffs in Microsoft. Oh, wait, they're another part of the brain project too. What do these type of vaccines all have? Oh, nanotech? Nanotech? And mRNA? And what? What did Jules discover in doing her research? This mRNA? This fancy RNA that they're putting into these European vaccines that are DARPA funded, that go in and actually reprogram your DNA to recognize a new pathogen. It's a new way of doing vaccines. What else is mRNA used for? What Jules found in her research, that mRNA is also something that's used in the brain to help retain and delete memories. Oh, yes, it is. It is, people. We'll get there. All right, let's listen to the rest of this. So the National Institute of Health found over 300 vials of deadly germs now protected.
Highly contagious viruses and bacteria. The Food and Drug Administration says they were in a building. It is used for decades at the NIH campus in Bethesda, Maryland. It's already known that 6 vials of decades-old smallpox virus turned up at the same site.
And what's in Baltimore, Maryland? Oh, I don't know, Dennis NSA headquarters? What, Johns Hopkins University, where they're doing all the brain scans? Oh, my goodness. What an ugly, disgusting, horrifying web we weave. Guys, I should write a fucking novel on this stuff, because you know what? It would be a 1,000,000-copy bestseller. Except that it's all fucking real. I think they hired Hollywood to write this shit. I don't know. All right, now let me get to mine before the first cup. So yes, over 300 vials of all kinds of horrific stuff was just found willy-nilly in Bethesda, Maryland. Sitting, I don't know, on another filing cabinet somewhere. What the hell? This cannot be accidental. We are not this dumb. This is like orchestrated dumb. And the sad fact of the matter is, why aren't people standing outside the National Institute of Health with wooden spoons and freaking pots and pans, just pounding them as loud as they can? The pot and pan works as a weapon, too, after the fact. Make sure it's cast iron. Now, what's interesting is that they have sucked all of my stories, so now they're only giving me an overview brush of all these stories that I posted. I really got to dig now just through the last few days to find the crap that I posted. I really wanted to find, there are two things that I want to point out. I am going to run out of time. One is this mRNA. There's mRNA. It is synthetic. What they are using it for is they're putting it into vaccines, and they are programming RNA, by the way, are the building blocks of DNA. DNA are the building blocks of life. I really think that somewhere in there, if I really dug into it, I would find out that it also, somewhere related, is this new life form that they created with 2 extra proteins. DNA contains CATG, which are your 4 proteins of life. That is every piece of life on this planet. Oops. That was my mic. A couple months ago, if you guys remember, they announced without much fanfare, because they didn't want people to freak the hell out, that they created a new life form. Yes, they did. They added 2 new proteins to a DNA strand, and they've gotten it to reproduce. Hence, new life. So this new DNA strand has CATG and 2 added proteins, X and Y. X and Y are going to be able to be used to make, I think they said in one of the clips, 417 new combinations and permutations. I mean, 2 new proteins, that could be a whole nother planet's worth of life, of different types of life. And I really think that this is the end game on how they're going to integrate us into the machine, or the machine into us, synthetic into the biological. It'll be an easy way to get it inserted and have it replicate, because that's what DNA does. Well, RNA is the building block to DNA. So they've also been going in and manipulating RNA. So they have this mRNA now. This mRNA is a synthetic form of RNA that they can go in and they can program for it to be specialized, for it to recognize and to do special things. And what they've been able to do is to get this mRNA, once injected into a body. This has all, by the way, been in the so-called pursuit of a universal flu vaccine. They will take this modified RNA, they will inject it into a body, the RNA will go into your DNA, and it will reprogram your DNA to recognize whatever has been told as a pathogen. So in the old days, they used to have to inject us with an adjuvant. That adjuvant would go in and irritate your immune system. While it is irritating your immune system, it creates an immune response. When it creates an immune response, and especially an overly active immune response, that's what causes the lasting memory in your immune system, at least by theory, using an adjuvanted vaccine. Used to be some sort of aluminum spinoff, I don't know, aluminum sulfate, aluminum nitrate, aluminum something. In the rabies vaccine, I've talked about that many times. That's why I got into all this, was my cat's cancer and them telling me that that 3-year vaccine in the adjuvant is what was causing the sarcomas in animals, which is why they give the injections now in the leg and not in the back of the neck. Then we had the squalene. Now they're working on these new mRNA vaccines as well as these VLPs, which are these virus-like particles. That's the other set of DARPA research. Now, I discovered something very, very, very disturbing yesterday. Though the mRNA, I have not seen yet, is being spread out across the populace. It is being developed in Europe, and like I said, they at times have allowed things like the squalene vaccine to be used on their population long before it was used here. So who knows? They could already be doing clinical trials somewhere in Europe. But these VLP vaccines, the virus-like particles, which again, like I said, have DARPA money. This is the stuff that they're doing with the tobacco that they talked about yesterday with Philip Morris and that Metagayco down at Texas A&M University, where they're drowning these tobacco plants and whatever. They're using the VLPs in there. But they've already used VLPs in a vaccine on our children. Guess what vaccine that is? And again, like I've always said, don't be 1.0 people. Because you are the Petri dish experiment that now has gotten rid of all of that overhead of R&D budget. They're using virus-like particles where they put nanotech into this stuff and then shoot it into your kids in the HPV vaccine that now they've tried to make mandatory for all children going to school. Tell me if that does not have MF written all over it. I was so angry when I saw that yesterday. It is in the HPV vaccine. And now we have 12-year-olds going into menopause. And entire populations of teens in one town having this uncontrollable narcolepsy. Guys, we're just about out of time again. I need to kick it off. Here we go. Stick around. Tonight's Wednesday night anyway. It's always a great night. Tomorrow, I think we will continue right here. I also want to talk about the UID program in India. I found an original 7-minute video. It's in that before the first cup of tea if you want to get a heads up. All right, guys, stick around. John Stokes, Jack Flood, Josh. We do a rebroad at Dane tonight, 8 o'clock. Mr. Jimmy Funky's 2-hour night, and Nick and BP at 11 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday nights are awesome at radio. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Have an awesome Wednesday. Ciao.